I never expected to see my long-lost daughter waiting tables in a restaurant. My heart stopped. The moment was surreal, like a scene ripped from a movie. There she was, her long golden hair catching the dim light, cascading down her shoulders. And those eyes bluer than I remembered, like the summer sky. I wasn't prepared. I stood frozen, my breath hitched. The people around me blurred as if I were underwater. Voices became echoes, swirling around me. The clanking of dishes rang sharp in my ears, but all I could focus on was her. My daughter. How had I not known? Years of silence danced in the air, wrapping around me like a thick fog. I hadn't seen her since the day I lost her. I could almost feel the weight of the past pressing in on me. The fights, the heartbreak. Each moment replaying in my head with a sluggish sadness that made my stomach churn. That I searched her face for recognition, but she was focused, moving with purpose. She took orders with a practiced smile, but I could see the tiny cracks, tension in her shoulders, a flicker of uncertainty in her glances. Was I invisible to her? A ghost from the shadows? A stranger longing for a connection that seemed torn beyond repair? And then, a man approached her. My heart raced. Older, with a rough exterior, he leaned in close. I felt a pang of possessiveness. What was their relationship? Was he another piece of the puzzle that spiraled away from me? My hands trembled as I gripped the table, nails digging into the wood. They laughed, and I felt sick. The warmth in her smile shattered my heart. Who was this man taking my daughter's joy? I wanted to scream, to leap up and call her name, but the words got stuck in my throat, a lump of fear and regret. The air thickened with questions. How did she end up here? Was she happy? Did she know how much I missed her? The silence screamed louder than my thoughts. People around me shifted, some stealing glances, unsure of my emotional storm. I was hyper-aware, each heartbeat echoing like thunder in my chest, and then it happened. As she turned to deliver a drink, she paused. Our eyes locked for a brief moment, and it felt like the world held its breath. I saw its blankness, the confusion, maybe even a flicker of recognition danced across her face. But before I could react, the moment shattered. She broke the gaze and turned away, oblivious to the impact she'd just made on my life. That I needed to move. I needed to talk to her, but this was all too much. Panic gripped me. Would she hate me for showing up like this, a lost soul in a chaotic world? As I stood there, stuck between hope and fear, an overwhelming thought coursed through my mind. What if I lost her again? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The restaurant buzzed around me, a stark contrast to the tumult inside my heart. I barely registered the clinking glasses and the murmur of conversations. My eyes were fixated on her, trying to memorize every detail. What was her life like now? Had she found happiness amidst the chaos of our past? I forced myself to breathe, to think rationally. She was working, after all. I couldn't disrupt her life no matter how much I yearned to reach out. But each laugh, each smile she shared with that man made it harder to suppress the aching desire to just hold her again. As she moved from table to table, it felt like each step she took propelled her further away from me. Lost in my thoughts, I didn't notice when he walked over a couple of tables down, an elderly man with a warm smile. You look like you could use some air, he said kindly, gesturing to the door. It can get overwhelming in here, can't it? I nodded slightly, grateful for the distraction. Yeah, you could say that. First time here? He asked, tilting his head with genuine curiosity. Something like that, I managed, fingers fidgeting nervously on the table. I wanted to tell him everything, about my daughter, my regrets, the years we lost. But how could I explain a lifetime in a single breath? The man peered into my eyes, as if searching for an answer that lay buried deep within me. "Family can be complicated," he said softly. "But it's never too late to try." His simple words wrapped around my heart like a balm, and for a split second, I felt hope. It wasn't just that he understood, it was that he saw me pain, my yearning. Maybe I could find the courage to approach her, to glimpse into her world, no matter how painful it might be. That I steeled myself, watching as she took a break, leaning against the counter, sipping water. I could see her shoulders relax. It was a fleeting moment of peace amidst the bustling crowd. Her eyes sparkled as she shared a quick laugh with the bartender, a bond unbroken by the burdens of life that I had only just begun to understand. That I took a deep breath and stood up, every step toward her filled with apprehension. My heart raced, anticipation and dread coiling tightly within me. But my courage faltered as he approached her again, laughter spilling between them like sunlight through dark clouds. What was I even supposed to say? "Hey, your long-lost father wasn't expecting to find you in a place like this?" Suddenly, her laughter faded, and she glanced my way. Those piercing blue eyes locked onto mine again, and the world melted away. In that instant, I thought I saw a spark of recognition, a flicker of curiosity. But before I could take another step, a patron called out a drink order, breaking the moment completely. I stood rooted in place, frustration boiling inside me. Would she ever really know who I was? Would she want to? The weight of the past pulled me down. Each day had been a struggle, each moment since her disappearance had stitched an unbearable layer of sorrow into my soul. As she turned to fulfill the order, I felt a hand softly touch my shoulder. I looked around to see the elderly man from before, a knowing look in his eyes. "You have to take the leap, my friend. If you keep waiting for the right moment, it may never come." His words shimmered with wisdom, but my anxiety twisted them into an agonizing mantra. Could I risk the rejection? Could I place my heart back into the storm? My resolve crumbled as she laughed again, the warmth of it resonating deep within me, lighting a flicker of hope, but extinguishing my courage. I took a step back, feeling like a child lost in a maze of strangers. Just as I contemplated retreating, a figure emerged from the corner, rushing toward her. Another patron, young and boisterous, gripping a bouquet of flowers. "Surprise!" he exclaimed, a wide grin on his face. My world imploded. My heart raced with a sickening flash of jealousy and despair. She smiled at him, a radiant smile that illuminated the dim restaurant, her laughter mingling with his, as if I had never existed. My legs turned to lead as I stumbled backwards into the throng of tables, the realization crashing over me. She had moved on. She had built her life without me. Tearing my gaze away, I felt the sting of betrayal clawing at my throat. Was it better to stay hidden, or to risk being shattered yet again? I turned to leave, but the elderly man's words echoed in my mind, wrapping around me like a lifeline. "Use this pain, twist it into courage," he had said. With trembling hands, I took a deep breath, intent on facing the storm rather than fleeing from it, but as I stepped outside, ready to gather every ounce of strength to try once more, a hard voice called out behind me, freezing me in place. "Dad?" I whipped around, disbelief flooding me. There she stood, the laughter turned to shock and confusion, the flowers at her side forgotten. Hope surged, but just as quickly, the pain of uncertainty crept back. What next? Would she welcome the stranger her memory had buried, or would this moment simply shatter what little was left? The world seemed to distort around me. Her voice echoed in my ears, a precious sound I had longed to hear but never expected. "Dad?" It was a single word that pierced through the chaos of my heart, sharp and clear. I wanted to embrace it, to hold on tight, but the enormity of the moment left me frozen, grappling with the reality of what had just unfolded. She took a cautious step forward, her brow furrowing in confusion. I could see the memory flicker in her eyes, a hazy recognition. But would that fragment of familiarity bridge the chasm we had created over the years? I swallowed hard, my mouth suddenly dry as a desert. "Is it really you?" she asked, voice trembling, as if afraid to accept this possibility. The flowers at her side were still bright, vibrant against the dullness of my existence. I wanted to reach out and tell her everything, the reasons we had lost each other, the guilt that had eaten away at me like corrosive acid. But words were just beyond my grasp. I started, my throat constricting. I've missed you so much. It felt incredibly insufficient, like trying to fill the ocean with a teacup. Her expression shifted, the flicker of something pain. Anger flashed before her walls came up, sealing away her emotions. How could you just show up like this? After all this time? The heat of her words burned, the truth of them lashing against my heart that I didn't know. I thought you were better off without me, I managed to say, each word heavy with the truths I had buried for too long. Better off? She echoed, her voice breaking. Do you have any idea what it's been like for me? I didn't know how to answer. The elderly man's wisdom rang hollow in the face of her pain. Where did I even begin to unravel the years of silence? I studied her face, the hurt at the corners of her eyes, the tightness in her jaw. I wanted to pour out my soul, to fill in the gaps I had left behind, every unshared moment clawing at my insides. As if sensing the turmoil within, her voice softened. Do you even care? You vanished when I needed you most. Each word felt like a lash, aimed with precision, and I flinched. I care. I care more than you can possibly imagine, I said, desperation creeping into my tone. I'm here now. Please, just give me a chance to explain. But she looked away, glancing at the young man who had given her the flowers, then back at me. I have a life now. I've moved on. There was a finality in her tone, a wall built so high that I feared I might never scale it again. Just then, the man's arm draped tenderly around her shoulders, offering an unspoken strength. Is everything okay here? He asked, eyes darting between us, his protective nature apparent. I felt the breath rush from me again, bitterness curling inside my chest. Just catching up, she said, without looking at me. Can you give me a moment? Her voice remained soft, but the steel behind it made it clear that any further discussion was unwelcome. Watching her seek comfort in someone else's embrace twisted the knife deeper than I thought possible. I couldn't root for her happiness when it felt so adversarial. Swallowing back the lump in my throat, a part of me screamed to run, to flee the scene where I was a mere ghost in her new life. But another part of me, fueled by the man's earlier encouragement, held me in place. Just know I want to be part of your life, I said, my words fighting against the rising tide within me. I want to make it right. She froze, gaze hardening. You can't just barge in and expect everything to be fixed. You don't understand. I want to understand. I interrupted, the desperation blooming inside me like a wildflower in barren soil. I've spent every day wishing I could be there for you. Just tell me what to do. But her expression shifted once more, sadness replaced with anger. You think that's enough? You think I can just forget? People don't just disappear, Dad. You think it's that easy? Her words hit me like ice shards, jagged and bitter. I stood there, feeling smaller than ever, drowning in the fallout of my decisions. This was my moment, and I had squandered it, turned it into another tragic scene in a long list of regrets. Before I could summon a response, she turned away, the warmth of the restaurant failing to reach the cold pit forming in my gut as she and her new life vanished from my sight. But just as hopelessness settled in, her boss approached her, gesturing that it was time to return to work. You're off for a while after this, right? He asked, harried but genuinely caring. She nodded, still lowing past me. Yeah, just a few more tables. As she turned towards the entrance, my heart raced again, a flicker of a chance igniting within me. I could catch her before she disappeared into the back, before she buried this moment and categorized it as forgetting. But would it mean anything? Just then, I felt a hand clasped down on my shoulder again. The elderly man stood at my side, a knowing look that pierced through the shadows in my heart. Sometimes the truth must be unearthed, no matter how painful it seems. I sighed deeply, feeling the weight of a decision bearing down on me. Then, as she stepped further away, my courage whispered to fight for her again. And as I moved to follow, a sudden cheer erupted from the other side of the restaurant, a commotion I couldn't quite decipher. Curiosity piqued, I looked back in time to see the man with the flowers drop to one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. Gasps enveloped the room, the shock colliding with the growing anticipation in the air. I watched her face, bewilderment mixing with something hope. She blinked, her previous anger and pain replaced with surprise, and my heart sank as it cracked open, revealing my worst fears. I was too late. I was always too late. They were moving forward. I was still standing still. And as moments stretched into an unbearable silence, I realized, without a shadow of a doubt, that the distance between us just grew wider. I turned back, knowing nothing could change the tide that seemed to be drifting us apart once more. But the feeling of being seen in that moment lingered, a bittersweet reminder of the connection I had neither understood nor nurtured in the time given to me, and as I stepped out into the chill of the evening air, her laughter faded, echoing off the walls of my memory, a reminder that some doors remain locked, even when we are desperate to open them. The crisp evening air stung my cheeks as I stepped out of the restaurant, every breath heavy with the bitterness of regret. I had hoped for a rekindling, a flicker of warmth to guide me into her life, but all I found were locking doors. The laughter that had once filled my days, now turned to whispers of what could have been, wrapped around me like a shroud that I stumbled through the night, my heart still echoing with her words, each one a dagger piercing deeper into the remnants of my already fragile resolve. The familiar streets felt foreign now, distant echoes of laughter and joy highlighting the hollow abyss within me. A few blocks away, I drifted past the old park where I used to take her as a child, watching her chase after pigeons, her giggles ringing like a sweet symphony. But those memories cultivated a dark heaviness, as if a vine of bitterness wrapped around each recollection, squeezing until I could barely breathe. Why didn't I try harder? I murmured to myself, my voice barely above a whisper. It felt like a futile question, one without an answer. As I meandered through dimly lit pathways, I automated my steps until I found a small, unassuming cafe. The warm glow through the windows pulled me from my thoughts, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee beckoned me. The tiny bell above the door chimed as I entered, a sound that somehow felt like an invitation. "Can I help you?" The barista, young woman with a bright smile, looked genuinely interested, as if the world hadn't just crumbled for me moments earlier. "Just a coffee, please," I replied, constraining my voice to sound composed. As I waited, I noticed a small table in the corner where an elderly couple shared a dessert, their laughter bubbling like a fine wine. I couldn't help but feel the contrast, the sweetness of their love and the bitter emptiness of the connection I lost. My heart ached with longing, both for a past I couldn't reclaim and a future that felt increasingly out of reach. "Here you go," the barista said as she placed the steaming cup before me. I forced a smile, thankful for the momentary distraction. As I stirred the sugar into my coffee, I spotted movement outside the window and turned to catch glimpses of passers-by. And there, for a brief moment, my heart soared. A woman that looked like my daughter strolled past, her hair shimmering even in the dim light. My breath caught in my throat. I darted toward the door, half expecting her to turn, to recognize the silhouette of her father. But the universe was cruel. It was not her, just another stranger embodying a painful echo of cherished memories. Deflated, I returned to my corner seat, lost in thought as I sipped the bitter brew. My mind replayed every word, every missed opportunity. Suddenly, the sound of chattering voices pulled me back, and I glanced up to see a young girl, maybe 10, with big eyes, standing next to a man who appeared to be her father. "I'm so sorry," the father said, his voice a soothing balm. "I promise we'll do this together, okay? No more solo adventures." At his words, the girl beamed, her sweet laughter filling the air as she jumped up and down, reminding me of my own daughter. Each bubble of cheer radiated warmth, and for a split second, I felt a flicker of what could have been. Hope bloomed unbidden within me, fragile but persistent, but then the memory of her anger crashed into the moment, and I sighed, feeling my heart plunge once more. It wasn't enough to see a glimpse of a family that wasn't mine, it was a reminder of everything I had lost. Suddenly, my phone chime broke through my thoughts. I glanced down to see a text from an unknown number. Hesitation gripped me, but something, an urge, a whisper compelled me to open it. "Did I ask this you? I saw you at the restaurant. I think I can help." My heart raced as I stared at the screen, the words pulling me deeper into a possibility I never anticipated. A part of me leaped to conclusions while another recoiled at the idea of reaching out once more. Who was this stranger? What could they offer? Almost without thinking, my fingers danced across the screen as I typed back, "Help me how?" As the seconds stretched into agonizing minutes, my heart felt heavy with anticipation and dread. What answers would this person hold? Would they carry the possibility of mending what seemed irreparably fractured? Unnamed fears tangled with flickers of hope while shadows continued to dance just beyond my reach, and then the familiar sound of my phone pinged again. The brief moment of excitement transformed into a knot of apprehension as I braced myself for the unknown within the response that I know things about her life now. "More than you might be ready for," the message read, ominous in its clarity. The room felt stifling, closing in around me as I stared at the words, my heart and my mind battling for dominance. Worry crept in, gnawing at the fragile tendrils of hope I had just begun to nurture. What could this stranger reveal? Until now, my truth had been a relic of my own making, and now it risked being disassembled by an unseen hand. Just as I made to reply, the cafe door swung open, and amidst the golden buzz of light and laughter, a figure stepped inside, silhouetted by the streetlights behind me. Daughter's friend, the one who had stolen her away. Hope faded as despair washed over me, knowing my presence here had already set things in motion. As my heart sank, impossibly heavy, I recognized it was now or never. "Do you really think you can fix this?" I murmured to the air, feeling an inexplicable weight on my shoulders. In that moment, I understood. The journey was far from over, yet it bore challenges I couldn't yet fathom. And as I braced for what was to come, I couldn't shake the thought that sometimes, hope comes hand in hand with the harshest of truths. The cafe buzzed quietly around me, the din of clinking cups and murmured conversations fading into an indistinct hum as my eyes focused on her. There she was, my daughter, standing behind the counter, her apron accentuating an innocence that should have been shielded from the cruelties of life. At that moment, the world around me felt suspended in time, the reality of her existence crashing over me like a wave. She looked different, older, yet somehow still the same, the way the sun filters through leaves, casting shadows that reveal both light and darkness. She was laughing with the barista, a sparkle in her eye that seemed too radiant to belong to someone once lost to me. My breath caught in my throat, a mixture of shock and disbelief. Was this truly the same girl I once held in my arms, the vibrant spirit I had watched vanish? Time slowed as I struggled to gather the pieces of my heart that had shattered when she decided to walk away. She was so close within arm's reach, and yet, I felt myself paralyzed, a statue crafted from fear and uncertainty. "Hey, can I take your order?" Her voice pulled me from my reverie, a cheerful lilt that only deepened the chasm in my chest. I blinked at her, floundering to find words while my heart throbbed incessantly, wishing I could drown in the sound of her laughter. Just coffee," I managed, the words spilling clumsily from my lips. Her smile faltered for a heartbeat, a flicker of recognition dancing in her eyes. Had she felt the same jolt of connection I did? But then the moment passed, and her gaze shifted back to the menu board, taking the semblance of an anchor rather than an unmoored daughter. With trembling hands, I took my coffee when she handed it to me, the warm cup barely warming the ice-cold fear in my belly. I stole glances at her as she chatted with the patrons, serving each customer with an ease that belied the depth of my longing. In those soft moments, I caught flashes of the little girl who used to draw pictures in my lap, her face alight with joy, a bittersweet reminder of the innocence that had been lost. That I couldn't help myself. I took a step closer, compelled by an invisible thread that tied us together despite the time and silence that had created an ocean between us. "Do you remember me?" The words slipped from my mouth, their weight heavier than I anticipated. Her eyes widened for a moment, confusion dancing across her features. "I'm sorry, I don't." My heart sank further, each heartbeat echoing the sentiment of a world that had grown unbearably cold. Yet beneath that despair, there was something else, a need for connection, however fragile. "You used to call me Dad," I choked out, each syllable feeling like a stone lodged in my throat. For a long moment, the air crackled with unspoken words. She straightened, the blouse of her uniform straining against the sudden tension between us, something shifting in her expression as she realized the enormity of who I was, who I still wanted to be. "Why are you here?" she asked, a thread of caution woven into her voice. It was the closest to an invitation I could have hoped for, and yet it pierced through the anticipation like a sharp blade. "I am looking for you," I replied, the truth laid bare for her to see, the ache in my heart spilling over the edges of everything I had tried to bottle away. Just then, the bell chimed as a newcomer entered the cafe, a sharp tug of air as a tall figure stepped inside. The warmth of the room evaporated as I recognized him, the man who had taken her away, Chloe. He called, his voice dripping with a familiarity that sent a chill through my spine. "You're needed in the back." My daughter's eyes darted toward him, and it was as if the vibrancy of the moment drained into a cold void. Slowly, she turned back to me, the recognition swimming in her gaze, shifting to something masked beneath a veil of apprehension. "Wait, I started, but the whirlwind of uncertainty stole my words as she brushed past me, everything I had mustered dissipating like smoke in the air. "Just a minute," I called after her, desperation clawing at my insides as my heart raced. Would this be the last I ever saw of her? She hesitated at the door of the back room, glancing back with a mix of recklessness and longing, a fragile thread of hope that faltered and almost broke. "I can't," she finally whispered, her voice barely carrying through the heavy air. And just like that, she disappeared, leaving me standing frozen amidst the chaos of emotions swirling around the cafe. The barista watched curiously, as the laughter and warmth continued, oblivious to the devastating scene that had just unfolded. I gripped the counter, my coffee forgotten, its heat fading to the coldness of lost moments. The text lingered in my mind like an echo, a reminder that truths were waiting just beneath the surface, entwined in mystery and heartbreak. The world had shifted, and here I was again, suspended in a tide of unanswered questions, longing for the connection that felt just out of reach. Would I ever be able to mend what was broken, or had I walked into a labyrinth with no exit? As I turned to leave, the door swung open once more. It was the stranger from before, the one who had texted me. "We need to talk," was all they said, their voice low and filled with an urgency that set my pulse racing. Everything I thought I understood began to unravel as the weight of their words settled like stones in my belly. A depth of revelation awaited me, but at what cost? Where was the path that led me back to the light, back to her? In that moment, my heart raced with equal parts dread and anticipation, wrestling with the question, what other harsh truths lay ahead, and would I have the strength to face them? The cafe's atmosphere felt charged, a cacophony of clattering dishes and muffled laughter swirling around me, drowning out my thoughts. I stood by the massive window, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows that wove through my apprehension. I could hear the distant clinking of cups, the rhythmic hum of the espresso machine, but all I could focus on was the figure of the stranger in front of me. "Who are you?" I breathed, narrowing my gaze as I scanned their features, trying to decipher their intentions. The urgency in their tone had sent a shiver down my spine, opening a door to possibilities I wasn't ready to confront. "Let's step outside," they replied, an intensity in their wide-set eyes. As we moved away from the cafe's bustling heart, my thoughts spiraled with questions that clawed at my consciousness. I could still feel the hollow ache left by my daughter's abrupt departure, and the concern for her safety coiled tight within my chest. Outside, the golden hour illuminated the streets, its beauty juxtaposing the turmoil in my heart. I turned toward the stranger, who remained shrouded in an air of mystery. "What do you know about her?" I asked, a hint of desperation lacing my words. Would they reveal more about the life she had built in my absence? The stranger hesitated, their lips pursed as if weighing the gravity of the moment. "More than you realize," they said finally. "But it's a complicated story, one that's not just about Chloe." "Chloe, her name sounds beautiful," I said, feeling almost foolish in the way I reverently spoke it. "What do you mean it's not just about her?" "Your daughter, she's been through things I can't begin to describe. Things that changed her, a lot." The stranger's words felt like icy rain against my heart, chilling the warmth of hope that had begun to simmer inside me. "But she's still the same girl you knew. She just needs some time." My voice cracked, the weight of unspoken years pushing against me. How had I allowed the moments with her to slip through my fingers like sand? Time felt like the cruelest beast, one that had both gifted me the chance to reconnect and stolen Chloe away again. "That I am not here to hurt her or to reveal everything you might want to know," they continued, glancing around as if ensuring we were not overheard. "I want to help, but you need to be prepared for the reality of who she has become." "What do you mean?" I pressed, feeling frantic now. "Just tell me, there are secrets, dangers, even." The stranger hesitated. A shadow passed behind their eyes, a flicker of something darker. "She's involved with people who don't have her best interests at heart." My breath drew shallow, a visceral panic rising within me. "What do you mean? Is she in trouble?" The words spilled from my lips, heavy with dread. Let's just say, she's connected with a group that has its fingers in some dangerous pies drugs, maybe even trafficking. I staggered back, the thought expanding in my mind like a balloon of horror, the air escaping from my lungs. No, not Chloe, I whispered, the denial a sharp ache deep within. That I am serious, they maintained, their demeanor shifting from that of a stranger to a confidant wrapped in shared concern. I can help you reach her, but you must trust me. She needs someone she knows she can rely on. Why should I trust you? All the fear had coalesced into an armor of doubt protecting my heart. You might be part of the very group you're warning me about. They held my gaze, steady and unwavering like a beacon. I was once part of that world. I broke free. I found my own light again. I know how to navigate the darkness. That I watched them, searching for any hint of deceit, but all I saw was sincerity woven with a deep-seated desperation. They continued, if you want to save her, you can't just wait for her to come to you. You must confront the people who have a hold on her. Save her, it's too late for that. I shook my head, feeling the enormity of my failures crashing down on me like a wave, pushing me toward despair. How do I find the strength to fight for her? The stranger stepped closer, lowering their voice. You have to realize that Chloe needs someone willing to fight for her, not just wait in the shadows. If anything, the fact that they stopped short, eyes darting back to the cafe. The fact that she recognized you today means something. That I shifted uncomfortably, the memory lacing through the fabric of my thoughts like a persistent thread. But she ran away because she's scared. Because she hasn't seen you in years. She's been protecting herself from a world that's hurt her and now thrown you into it. But inside, she wants that connection, and just like that, the flicker of hope surged once more, yet it was cauterized with fear. The path forward seemed shrouded in fog, blurred edges of chaos concealed from view. I don't know how to proceed. I don't know how to reach her without pushing her away further. Every step you take will feel heavy, that's a certainty, the stranger said gently. But remember, sometimes even the smallest gesture can make the greatest impact. Their words filled me with an unsteady resolve, a new determination blossoming amidst the worry. I want to help her, but I need to believe I can. Then let's figure this out together. They extended a hand, and for a brief moment, I hesitated, wrestling with doubt and the instinct not to trust. But if Chloe was at stake, if her future teetered on the edge of peril, then I had to embrace this chance no matter how uncertain. I grasped their hand, feeling a strange warmth radiate through me, a spark igniting the embers of hope. As we walked back toward the cafe, the ambivalence of the moment hung in the air, a precarious dance on the edge of a precipice. I could barely breathe against the weight of impending revelation, knowing on the other side of the door lay my daughter, unknowingly waiting amidst shadows darker than I had realized. What awaited me when I stepped back inside? Was she still in danger? And what secrets would come spilling forth if I dared to ask the right questions? Only one thing was certain: the journey had only just begun, and the truth was lurking just beyond the horizon, poised to change everything once again. The cafe door swung open, and the noise rushed past us, a harsh reminder of the world that continued without pause, indifferent to the personal storm brewing within me. My heart pounded in rhythm with each step toward the table where Chloe had once stood, the warmth of the stranger's hand lingering on my skin like a beacon. As we entered, my eyes darted around desperately. People were engrossed in conversations, laughter bubbling up while the barista expertly crafted lattes. But it was her face that anchored my attention. Chloe stood at the counter, her back turned to us, oblivious to my presence and the turmoil of emotions swirling within me. Focus, the stranger whispered as they squeezed my shoulder, grounding me. You can't lose her again. That I watched Chloe now. Her movements appeared graceful yet distant, an unbreakable barrier encasing her in a world I had little understanding of. The way she poured coffee and exchanged smiles with other patrons seemed both familiar and foreign. My daughter was so close, yet I felt miles apart, adrift in a sea of regret. The world she's in, it's easy to get lost, the stranger murmured. You need to keep your guard up. A pang of guilt surged within me as if the weight of every moment I had missed was pressing firmly on my chest. I had failed to reach out, to be there for, to understand what she had endured. Had she been waiting for me? The thought flickered like a candle, ready to snuff out but never quite extinguished. Does she know I'm here? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The stranger studied my daughter intently. Not yet. But she will soon enough. If you're going to do this, you have to confront her, not hide in the shadows. It's time to step into her light. That I squared my shoulders, grappling with the knot in my stomach. What if she doesn't want to see me? What if I push her further away? Then you speak from your heart. You let her know what's at stake. I moved forward with a sense of purpose, each step heavier yet more resolute. If this was going to be our moment, I needed to seize it, to reclaim what was lost. But what words could possibly bridge the chasm of years between us? How could I mask the desperation that trickled through every thought? Chloe, I called, my voice breaking through the cafe hum like a gasp. She turned, her expression shifting from curiosity to shock in an instant. The teetering emotion in her eyes tangled with confusion, and for a heartbeat, all that was unsaid hung in the air between us. Mom? Her voice was barely audible, laced with disbelief. I stepped closer, aching to bridge the distance, but hesitation held me hostage. "I'm here," I managed, forcing out the syllables while my heart thundered in my chest. "I saw you. I've thought of you every day." For a moment, time felt suspended around us. Recognition flickered, as if she was wrestling with the weight of memories long buried. But suddenly, the look in her eyes hardened, walls erecting between us faster than I could comprehend. "That I don't want to talk," she said, turning sharply away, the finality in her tone slicing through the air. "Please," I begged, feeling the ground shift beneath me, despair clawing at my voice. "I need to understand. You've changed. I need to know you're all right." The words bled out raw, each one a fragmented plea to reach her, to grasp any semblance of our bond. "That I am fine," she retorted, the edge of her voice sharper than before, bitterness tinged with something softer held just below the surface. "Just leave me alone, Chloe. I know you're struggling," I pressed, unwilling to relent. "I'm here now. I want to help. I'm sorry for everything, for not being there. Just give me a chance. Please." Her fingers clutched the edge of the counter, her focus faltering as fear crossed her features. But then, just as quickly, it was gone, replaced by a cold resolve. "You don't know anything," she whispered fiercely, her voice low but trembling with anger and pain. "Then teach me," I implored, desperate to reach the part of her that once sparkled with joy, the child I had lost to the passage of time. "Stop!" she exploded, the outburst causing heads to turn in our direction. "You don't get to show up like this. You don't just." She clenched her jaw, clearly wrestling with emotions that rippled just beneath the surface. "That I love you," I found myself saying, the words pouring out like a lifeline. "I'm sorry for everything that kept us apart. I want to be here now. I want you back in my life." With that, Chloe froze, her eyes glistening as walls began to crumble, cracks appearing in the armor she had constructed to face the world. The warmth I sought flickered in her gaze but then flickered away, extinguished by an overwhelming fear. "That's not enough. You can't just stop by and pretend everything's okay. You should," the stranger interjected softly, stepping forward as if sensing the tide shifting. "Chloe, you're not in this alone. We can discuss what you've been through. You can trust me." Chloe's gaze darted between us, confusion and conflict playing out on her face like a frantic dance. She took an unsteady breath, the weight of unspoken words constricting the space between us. "Trust?" she echoed, a hollow laugh escaping her lips as she glanced around, suddenly acutely aware of the eyes upon us. "Trust has to be earned. And right now, I don't know either of you." Before I could collect my breath, a sudden creak in the cafe door drew our attention. The ambient noise faded as a figure emerged, someone I recognized but never wished to see again. It was a face from Chloe's past, one that sent fear ricocheting inside my chest like a jackhammer. "Chloe. There you are." The deliberate tone sliced through the air, arrogance wrapped in a facade of friendliness. The world around us fell silent, as if time itself had taken a terrified breath, holding on to a moment fraught with ominous potential that I could only watch as Chloe's face contorted in panic, the earlier flickers of connection extinguished under the shadow of a danger I had yet to understand. Whatever had been brewing in that exchange faded away in an instant, leaving only apprehension hanging heavy between us. "Get away from her!" I shouted instinctively, my heart pounding against the confines of my ribcage, but as the words left my mouth, I knew a storm was approaching, and neither of us had the power to withstand it. Chloe's eyes darted toward me, uncertain and terrified, the doubt in her expression spelling out a question I wasn't ready to answer. Did she truly believe I could protect her? Could I face whatever darkness had come creeping back into her life, ready to steal her away yet again? My body tensed, every instinct urging me to shield her. But in that moment, the very essence of the universe quaked, sending shivers down my spine and leaving me breathless with uncertainty. Chloe was caught between two worlds, and I was once again left grappling with the fear that I may lose her to them both. The abrupt tension in the cafe pulsed like a living entity, wrapping around us all with a grip that felt unyielding and cruel. Chloe had gone pale, the color draining from her face as her breath seemed to hitch in her throat. I stood frozen, the words from my mouth suspended in midair like a lifeline tossed into the stormy sea, uncertain if it would reach her. The newcomer smiled slow, calculated, as if assessing game pieces on a chessboard. But I could see the lurking menace in his eyes, the kind of threat that whispered promises of complicated histories laced with hurt. "Why are you avoiding me, Chloe?" he asked, a strange blend of charm and condescension invading the space. "It's not polite to ignore friends." Her eyes flicked between him and me, confusion wrinkling her brow. I wanted to scream, to drag her from this pit of memories that had fashioned shadows around her, but fear coiled tight in my chest. Could she see the frantic attempts at connection through the haze of danger? "Leave me alone, Derek," she managed, her voice finally breaking through the silence, though it trembled just beneath the surface. I could see her fighting to regain her composure, but it seemed as if every step forward sent her reeling 2 steps back. "And what if I don't?" he pushed, stepping closer with an unsettling ease, his presence bleeding into the moment like ink spreading through water. "What if I want to remind you of all the fun we used to have? Remember?" Chloe's response came out as a hiss. "I'm not that girl anymore, are you sure about that?" The laughter in his tone rang false, like glass shattering underfoot. "You still owe me, Chloe. Don't forget that." Something inside me snapped. "Get away from her," I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls as adrenaline surged through me. I glanced at the stranger beside me, hoping for silent solidarity in the face of this growing confrontation. But their gaze was locked on Chloe, concern etched across their features. Derek's demeanor shifted, amusement unfurling into irritation as he finally turned to me, dismissive. "Who are you, anyway?" "My name doesn't matter." "Yeah, it does, actually," he interrupted, smirking in a way that made my veins boil. "You think you can just waltz back in after all this time and reclaim your daughter? That's rich." Chloe's fists clenched at her sides, the beautiful warmth that had flickered in her gaze now extinguished as uncertainty clouded her expression. "I don't owe you anything, Derek," she said, each word laced with defiance. But even in that moment of strength, I could sense an undercurrent of doubt threading through her resolve. "Broke your promise, didn't you?" he chuckled, his voice razor-edged. "Just like everyone else." My heart sank. I saw a flicker of hurt in her eyes as memories she'd been trying so hard to escape seeped back in like ink, blotting out the clarity she'd fought for. In that instant, I saw fragments of her past collide with the present, pinning her between two worlds that were both terrifying and familiar. "I am not giving up on you, Chloe," I said, my voice softer now, desperate to cut through the chaos that threatened to engulf her. I needed her to hear me. "I'm trying to help you. You don't need to face this alone." Derek shrugged theatrically, an almost playful mockery in his posture. "You think she's gonna listen to you? Who's to say you won't disappear again when things get tough? Didn't you leave her once?" Chloe flinched, an involuntary reaction that left my heart shattering anew. I had never meant to hurt her. Regret flooded through me as I took a step closer, intent on reaching her once more. "I'm here now, Chloe. I know I can't change the past, but you deserve to choose who stays in your life. You don't have to let someone control you, not anymore. Is that so?" Derek leaned in, his eyes narrowing. "You really think she wants your help? You don't know what she's been through. You can't just waltz back after years of being gone." "And I'm not going anywhere," I interrupted, the desperation spilling into my voice. "I want to understand. I want to be a part of your life, even if I don't know how to make it right yet." Chloe's gaze flickered back, and for the storm of emotions flashing behind her eyes. This was her fight. I could feel the tremors of the battle within her. But suddenly, the defiance slipped away, leaving only vulnerability behind. Just please, don't ruin this for me, she managed, her voice barely above a whisper, Derek's features twisted in annoyance. You don't have to listen to her, Chloe. I can give you everything you need. She failed you once. Are you really going to give her another chance? As the words hung in the air, the cafe filled with an uneasy silence, patrons glancing around warily. I could feel the walls closing in, and I knew that Chloe stood on the precipice of a decision that could change everything, and then, in that moment, a shift occurred. Chloe's expression hardened as she took a slow, deep breath, standing taller, her eyes locking onto mine. I'll decide what's best for me, she said firmly, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope through the haze of uncertainty. Derek's smile faltered, replaced with irritation as he took a step back, realizing the tide had shifted. You're making a mistake, Chloe. Trust me, I know how things go. As he turned sharply, the door swung open, letting in a rush of cold air and muffled voices, almost as if the world outside was calling her name. But before he could leave, I reached out, instinct kicking in. Wait! I called, my voice cutting through the cacophony of emotion that surrounded us, but it was too late. Derek shot a glance over his shoulder, and with a menacing grin, he vanished into the throng of everyday life, leaving an inky shadow of fear and uncertainty in his wake. Chloe's breathing was uneven, her emotions displayed like a fragile painting laid bare before me. She stood at the edge of a precipice I feared she might jump from. I need time, Mom, she breathed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, confusion overshadowing her defiance. The room felt heavier now with the weight of what had just transpired. But I'm here for you. I want to understand. My voice trailed off, hope twisting into apprehension. Time may not be enough, she whispered, the haunting thought weaving through the air between us, an unspoken acknowledgement of the battle that lay ahead. Hope flickered like a candle in the growing darkness, yet shadows of doubt pounded against its fragile light. I didn't know how to navigate the storm brewing within her, but something within me urged me forward despite the uncertainty that loomed. We weren't finished yet. A fresh wave of longing surged through me, desperate to protect her, to let her know the truth about love, loss, and the promises we make and break. It was more than a battle for her future, this was a quiet implosion of hearts intertwined, fighting against the world's relentless tug toward separation, and as I stared into her eyes, I knew one thing for certain, the journey was only just beginning, and I was terrified what lay ahead could threaten to tear us apart irreparably. The cafe hummed with a tentative energy as the silence after Derek's departure weighed heavily on us. The tables around us simmered with conversations, but as I looked at Chloe, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were suspended in a bubble, a world apart from everyone else. The flickering lights above us played tricks with shadows, and every flicker felt like a heartbeat in the growing abyss of silence. I should go, Chloe began, her voice trembling, but I clenched my fists, instinctively pushing against the tide of that thought. No, I insisted, my voice steady despite the chaos raging inside me. Not like this. We need to talk. Her gaze wavered. There was a flicker of resolve, as if she, too, sensed the colossal wave of emotion desperately lapping at our feet. But it might just sweep her away if we didn't wade through it together. Chloe took a seat across from me, her hands trembling slightly as they rested on the table. The space between us felt echoingly vast, as if a chasm had opened up in the wake of Derek's presence. What do you want me to say? She asked, the challenge in her tone underpinned by vulnerability. I want you to let me in, I replied, my heart aching as I met her gaze. Tell me what he means to you. Tell me how he hurt you. You don't have to carry that alone. She inhaled sharply, her eyes glossing over. You think it's that simple? Nothing about this is simple, I said, leaning toward her, desperate for that connection. But you deserve to feel like you're not trapped in the past. You deserve to have a choice. I thought I could handle it, she whispered, almost to herself, and I felt the world tilt on its axis as she grappled with the gravity of her confession. What do you mean? I started working here to get away, she finally admitted, her voice dropping. I thought if I surrounded myself with people, I'd forget. But the past doesn't let go that easy. The admission felt like a pebble dropped into a still pond, sending ripples across the surface of her heart. I wanted to bridge the gap, to grab her attention and tell her that moving forward didn't mean erasing the past. It just meant managing it together. I'll be with you, I said, urgency threading through my words. We can face it together, Chloe. Don't let Derek dictate how you feel or what you believe you deserve. There was a shadow of remembrance flitting across her features. He always has had that power over me. It's like he knows all my triggers, all my weaknesses, she said, still pacing through the labyrinth of her thoughts. What if I can't resist him next time? A knot twisted in my stomach. You're stronger than you think, but you don't have to fight alone. I won't let him hurt you again. I promise. Chloe lifted her gaze, searching my eyes for something trust, perhaps. What if I go to him? The question rattled through the air like shattering glass, sharp and agonizing. Don't say that, I urged, desperate to pull her back into the light. You've come so far already by standing against him once. You can hold your ground. Let me help, Chloe. She inhaled deeply, releasing it slowly, yet I could see the turmoil swirling behind her composure. I don't want to fall apart in front of you, she murmured. You've already lost me once. Hey, I said, softening, holding my breath as I reached across the table. You haven't lost me. I'm right here. Just then, a voice broke through our momentous soft, almost timid interjection. Excuse me, Chloe? A young waitress approached our table hesitantly, her eyes darting between us. Could you help me with? Chloe's expression shifted, her bravado cracking for a moment as she turned to the waitress, gratitude mingling with the frustration of reality pulling her from our conversation. Just a second, she breathed, turning back to me. The conversation hung like a suspended note in the air. The waitress walked away. I searched her eyes, searching for one more glimmer of strength, one more tether against the encroaching shadows of doubt. But as she turned back, the resolve in her gaze collapsed, the fragility evident. I think I need to go, Chloe said, bolting upright as if the air had suddenly turned electric. I can't be here anymore. Please, wait, I called out as her feet carried her toward the cafe's exit, my heart racing, frantic. We need to finish this. But she opened the door, and the brisk winter air seeped into the warmth of the cafe, swirling around her. I can't, I need to think, she threw back over her shoulder, and in that instant, as the door swung shut behind her, I felt an ache like losing a piece of my own heart. I sat there, gravelly silence crashing around me, the tension of uncertainty closing in. The patrons resumed their chatter, lifting their cups and sharing stories, while I stared at the doorway that was suddenly all too quiet. And then, without warning, my phone buzzed fiercely against the wood of the table. I grabbed it, glancing at the message, me heart plummeting as I read the words that awaited me on the screen. Mom, you need to come home. There's something I haven't told you about Derek. Ice coursed through my veins as panic bubbled up, a new wave of dread crashing over me. The world outside shifted and blurred, everything slanting towards unimaginable fears. In that moment, I realized nothing was certain. Would I lose her again? Would Derek return to haunt her? Or could I finally shield her from the darkness he cast over her life? I pushed back against the rising tide of fear, certain of one thing, would fight for her, no matter the cost, before it was too late. The cafe's entrance swung shut behind Chloe, leaving a heavy silence in its wake that clung to my skin like a shroud. My heart thudded against my ribcage, each beat echoing the desperation that had seeped into my bones. She had walked away, and I felt the distance stretch farther, an invisible tether of anguish that threatened to snap my resolve. But now a new weight pressed on me, more ominous than before, the message lighting up my screen like a beacon of urgency. Mom, you need to come home. There's something I haven't told you about Derek, the words twisted like a knife deep within me. Something was wrong, something dire enough that she had reached out, even amidst the chaos that had just unfolded between us. My hand trembled as I contemplated my next move. The stranger was still nearby, observing the aftermath of the storm with an understanding that felt almost palpable, as though they were holding their breath for me to take action. Did you see that? I murmured, holding my phone tightly. Their eyes flickered with concern, sensing the urgency coursing through my veins. Go to her, they urged softly but insistently. You can't let her face this alone. Not when she's already been through so much. That I nodded, forcing down the turmoil as I pushed back from the table, determination igniting within me. The cafe noise faded to white noise as I navigated past patrons, my focus solely on one goal, reaching Chloe before it was too late. The brisk air hit me as I stepped outside, the street lamps casting a warm glow in the chilly dusk. I was momentarily disoriented, scanning the street for any sign of her as shadows danced between flickers of light. Chloe could be anywhere, but every thought resonated within me, igniting the urgency burning deep in my chest. Chloe. I called, desperation wrapping around my words as they echoed into the twilight. The streets felt almost alive, people moved along with purpose, but they were unseen to me, an indifferent backdrop against the weight of my fear. That I saw her then, a flash of golden hair weaving through the throng, and instinct propelled me forward. Chloe. I shouted again, determination infusing my steps as I rushed to reach her. She glanced back, surprise flashing in her eyes, a moment of uncertainty that set off a tumultuous storm within me. Mom? She questioned, her voice wavering, a reflection of the turmoil buried inside her. Please, let's talk, I implored, the ground beneath us feeling less stable by the second. You said you needed me. I'm here now. Her demeanor shifted, vulnerability battling with the walls she had built around herself. Her breath hitched, and I reached out, craving to close the distance, to dissolve the barriers of time and hurt between us. You don't understand, she said, the tremor underscoring an emotional current that tied us together despite our fractured history. Derek Sade said he could protect me. Panic surged through my veins, knitting anxieties into my heart. Protect you? I echoed incredulously. Chloe, he's not your protector. He's a liar. He's part of the darkness that has haunted you. Her gaze faltered momentarily, almost taking a step back from me, yet a flicker of doubt rippled in her expression. But he knows me. He knows how to make me feel safe, she whispered, the words so laced with confusion that I felt the sharp prick of realization. He's a part of this life I've built. Derek has controlled you for too long, I pressed, holding firm against the tidal wave of memories that crashed against Meth's soft laughter of our past, the way she glimmered with joy before fear tainted her light. You can't let him manipulate your need for comfort. You deserve more than that, Chloe. The vulnerability stirred something deep within her, a war waged in the depths of her eyes that I had once thought lost forever. What if I'm not strong enough? She finally admitted, her voice breaking. Then let me help you regain that strength, I reminded her, stepping closer still, my heart racing as I spoke each word like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. You don't have to do this alone, none of it. You're not lost to me. Not anymore. Tears brimmed in her eyes, shadows of a fight fading as her breaths came deeper, an overwhelming ache mingling with hope breathing life back into the moment. I don't want to go back to that life, but I don't know how to escape, she whispered, and there it was, the crack in her armor, a chink through which light filtered in. You can start now by walking away from him, I said, reaching for her, my fingers brushing hers, a touch soft enough to remind us both of the bond that once flourished between us. We can find a way. There's still time to break free. Behind her, the noise of the city faded into the distance, and all that filled the space between us was the promise lingering in the air, the promise of connection, of understanding, of repairing what felt irreparably broken. I watched as courage flickered within her, mingling with her fear. What if I choose wrong again? She asked, the vulnerability clear among uncertainty. Then we keep forging ahead, together. Well, face it one breath at a time, I reassured, the gravity of our moment anchoring us both. For an eternity, we stood suspended in the crossroads of our lives, my heart open and raw, waiting with bated breath for her response, and then, against all odds, she nodded. Okay, she said, her voice barely a whisper but imbued with something deeper, something close to resolve. Let's do this. As we clasped hands, a tether formed, anchoring us to a choice made in the twilight of uncertainty. I felt the weight of years lift slightly from my chest, the jagged edges of the past softening as I finally became illuminated, standing side by side with her in a burgeoning dawn. Together, I smiled, warmth flooding through me as I led her away from the grasp of shadows. The journey ahead was uncertain, but I knew one indelible truth: we would weather this storm hand in hand. We're going to find the way back to each other. And with that promise echoing between us, we stepped into the murmur of hope, the whispers of a new beginning waiting to unfold, together amidst the intertwining hopes of a vibrant but winding road ahead. The memories of what had been melted away into the horizon, leaving in their wake the possibility of everything that lay before us.